allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask our deputy clerk to do the roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. James Douglas.
Here.
Mr. Eric Duquette.
Here.
Mr. Craig Bruno.
Here.
Mr. Mel Irwin.
Here.
And Mr. Craig Randall.
Here.
We also have present Mike Farrell, our highway superintendent, Courtney Tatro, our water superintendent, our dog control officer, Chaka. Don't ask me to say your last name.
That's a common phrase when it comes to you.
Pamela Barber, our confidential secretary to the board, and myself, Judy Akey, as deputy town clerk. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
And Matt
Bob.
Fowler was
Bob Winnick.
excused.
Matt's excused.
Yes, and Kristen Marino also asked to be excused tonight.
Okay.
Okay, with the roll call completed, we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, and requires a motion to accept the minutes for the public hearing last held on September 9th.
I'll make that motion.
Craig Bruno makes the motion. Is there a second? Mel seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And also acceptance of the regular board meeting minutes of September 9th, the same day.
Not make it.
Jim?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion's passed and both sets of minutes are accepted. Next item is item 5. It's community input. Do we have anyone that has indicated a desire to speak this evening?
No.
Okay. In that case, then we'll move on to an item that I'm sure is of interest to everyone in the room, and that is a project presentation regarding the repair or replacement of certain highway culverts throughout the town of Peru. And we have this evening representatives from Engineering Ventures, Mark DeSantis and Peter Gibbs. Gentlemen, you have the floor. For those of you that are facing, you may want to watch the screen as best you can, or maybe move your chair so we can see the presentation.
Maybe I'll move over here.
Come on over, Mr. Ryan, you got it. I usually sleep through this part.
Right, yeah.
You want some more lights out here?
Yeah, maybe.
Here we go, some of that work.
Yeah, that's better. Okay.
Is that good, Jim, or?
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Barber.
I can see, or do you want?
No,
that
actually-
out too? Would you like it?
Yeah, the one right near the screen, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe one more row, I guess.
There.
Beautiful.
That's
There.
good.
Awesome job.
Sorry.
So, as everyone knows, I'm Mark, and this is Peter with Engineering Ventures, and over the last, we've been working with the town. Peter has been for many years, and I've been here 10 years working with him, and over the last, 5 or 6 years, we've had a couple of these culvert projects come up, what we wanted to do with the town, and at the request of Mike too, is we wanted to kind of, rather than kind of get surprised by some of these culverts, when they come in and all of a sudden it's an emergency to replace them, and we just have to scramble to do it. Mike had was proactive in this and basically went and inspected a lot of them and wanted us to, you know, talk about which ones are important and why we do these, and kind of just as a long-term plan for the town. So when we do these culverts, there's you know, a lot of factors that go into this, and part of this is just to educate everyone too. You know, I know if everyone wants to, you know, wondering why we're putting in these big culvert boxes instead of just replacing them with pipes that are out there. But there's a lot of factors that go into it, and the first one is really just how much, you know, flow, the hydrology getting to the point. And there are many, you know, we go through many methods to do this. But the other one is the actual stream geometry. That controls the size of the culverts a lot. By the U.S. Army Corps criteria, the culverts have to be 1.25 times the width of the stream in that area. So think about a, you know, 4-foot culvert that's existing out there. Well, the stream width right before it is 12 feet. That culvert really needs to be, you know, 16 feet wide there. So that's where a lot of it comes from. And that kind of became the criteria, you know, after all these culverts were installed back in the 90s, because it just started to erode the street banks more. They realized that a lot of these were undersized. And other things like the site constraints and the depths of the culverts, if there's any ledge, if the town has right of way, if the town owns all the area, do we have to go onto private property? There's environmental things as far as wetlands, and one big environmental one is that we have to really establish the native stream bed back through the channel. And that's why they want these 3-sided boxes that we kind of, you know, the days of putting in pipes and just having a pipe carry it through, they don't want that for that reason. And then there's other things that have come up as far as temporary road closures and you know, impacts to neighbors. I know the one that was done recently at Cook Road, there was a neighbor that, you know, couldn't have access to that because of how small the road was, how wide the right-of-way was, and we had to actually provide access to him. And just so everyone knows that there's a reason for that, that if they ever have to get out, you know, we can't be the ones to tell them that they, sorry, can't get an ambulance to you or anything like that. So.
Excuse me, Mark, when you say we have to provide access to them, is it a state law or is it the town law?
That was actually came out of the town law, I believe. The town attorney was the one that said that. But it's also a safety, I mean, you know, a health and safety thing. But I do believe that that one came out of the town attorney.
Thank you.
So why are we looking at replacing these right now? And why do they generally need to be replaced? The main reason a lot of it is the culverts really just don't have the capacity anymore. Basically, when they were designed back in the 90s, it was a different way of thinking, a different technology, and a lot of them are just undersized. But that contributed to another reason where, because we're restricting flow at both the inlet and the outlet end with these just pipe culverts here, it's causing conditions where you end up having swirling water beforehand, and it actually ends up, you know, a lot of sediment gets dragged through there that wasn't intended, and actually starts to eat away at the existing culvert, and gets in between where the culvert and the backfill is, and all of a sudden it'll start to just deteriorate all of the fill that we put in to actually install that original culvert. And that's usually you end up seeing sinkholes at the road or stuff like that, because it's just there's more void space in the granular fill that's in the culverts, and it just starts the roadway will start to collapse there. Also, the sediment can also travel at such high velocities through there that it can actually just deteriorate the bottom of these culverts, which is what is happening to a lot of them here. Mike has kind of looked at all of these and said that, or at least the ones that are rated pretty urgent to be replaced, that there's really no bottoms in these culverts anymore. And that's all from the fact that these culverts were designed to handle a certain amount of water, but what people didn't realize was the really high velocities and the amount of sediment and just rock and sand that was actually getting pushed through these things.
Would you say that's, I mean, originally those culverts were put in with a 50-year lifespan, and now we're looking at maybe 25 years. Is that related to the 70s?
Yeah, because I think they were put in after Hurricane Florida, when there were 20 road closures, I think, in the town, and the Corps of Engineers came in, put those in. So yeah, from 1996 all the way up to now. And as Mark was saying, it's not, those tubes were put in there, they could handle the flow. But they increased the velocity, you've heard them say velocity, the speed of the water. And what it did is it picked up sediment from ahead of the, it doesn't increase the velocity just in the culvert, it increases the velocity just ahead of the culvert and after the culvert. So it picks up the sediment ahead of the culvert, shoves it through the culvert, kind of like sandblasts the bottom of it. And that's why you see probably a couple of years after those culverts were put in, the corrugation, the galvanization was effectively removed by the sediment coming through. And then you've had 20, 25 years plus of just bare sediment sitting in the bottom. And what Mike is finding is that there isn't any bottom left to some of these. There's voids. And now, as Mark said, the backfill that was around the pipe is moving through those voids and creates sinkholes. So
Plus we have different weather patterns now.
we do. That's the other thing is that we do. We have different weather patterns. We're getting much larger storms more frequently, so those culverts are being impacted by those higher flows and much, many more times a year than they originally were designed for. Yeah. Agreed.
So everyone kind of, I think everyone knows here that at least since 2015, we've done, I believe we've done 4 replacements. The 3, I just put the 3 on that I worked on here, but the first one I think was on Fuller, all the way down at the very end, the south end of Fuller Road. Then in 2019, we had one at Patton Road that actually a very large sinkhole opened up fairly quickly on that, if I remember. That was the type of thing where we had to get it permitted and built within a 1 month or 2 month period, which was really, luckily it was a smaller culvert. But Telegraph Road and Sullivan Road, that was a much larger one. That one was actually, there was a pretty large detour for 5 months through the area. And then the Cook Road one, which we just completed this year, and a little bit different with that one, but it's still the same. It's still the same design process. It's all the same permitting. So these are just some pictures of Cook Road and how you can kind of see what started that is that hole right there on the side. That's one of those sinkholes that just opens up. And all of a sudden, when that becomes visible, Mike can tell you that it can happen fast when that becomes visible. And that's the structure that we actually had to put in based on the stream width and the amount of flow and velocities that we needed to carry through that. So all the ones that we've replaced have been like this. It's just kind of, it's way different. It's a way different. This is what the Army Corps and the DEC, they all require this now.
What was that before? 2 4s?
That was, Mike, was that 2 4s on Cook Road?
What's that?
Was that 2 4-footers on Cook Road?
At Cook Road, it was 236 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 3.
Yeah.
That one ended up being a 14-foot wide
14
one, so.
So we go from a width of 6 feet to 14 feet.
Nice
So,
looking culvert.
so Mike had went around and identified 8 culverts that need to be replaced in the near future. It might be 9, I can't remember, you can show them that, but basically knew that there was ones. When we say culverts, we're talking about stream crossings that are jurisdictional to the Army Corps and the DEC and on town roads. We're not actually talking about crossings that go under 22 or routes or anything like that. So these are all town roads. This map right here, really hard to see, so that's why Peter got a big one that can sit in the town here and anyone can kind of look at it. But,
Thank you.
we try to identify every major crossing in the town where we've replaced them and what Mike has actually kind of looked at to say, these are the ones that we're looking at to be replaced in the near future. So, oh no, I can kind of point them out here. So,
These are blue line streams.
yeah.
So these are brooks and streams and rivers.
So we'll start with the ones that Mike has rated 8 out of 10. So Mike did a rating system of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least urgent to replace and 10 being the most urgent to replace. So there's 3 ones that he rated 8 that really should be replaced over the next year. Or at least, they should be the first priority for these. This, by the way, does not count Telegraph Road, which is already the one further down, which is already under design, and that's not us that's doing that one actually, so we don't know where they are in that process. But so the first one would be Westcott Road, which is out all the way out on off of Peasleyville Road. It's actually in the Adirondack Park. It's a street that serves, it's a dead-end street that serves 6 homes, I believe. And, let's see, it's a culvert that's at basically very close to the intersection with Peasleyville Road, and then there are 6 homes on the other side of the culvert. This one is a very wide crossing. It crosses the Salmon River. Right now, there is a 10-foot culvert and then a 13-foot wide by 9.5-foot wide culvert right next to each other. So we're talking, this is an existing culvert of about 25 feet. And when you look at the stream out there, it's very wide out there. We are probably looking at a bridge structure for this that's going to be 35 feet long or something, 40-foot span, something like that. So that's a very major one. The other issue that comes up with this, as in Cook Road, is that we do need to provide access to these 6 residents that are at these houses here. So just stuff that this is just giving an overview on it. The next one that Mike said was an 8 would be up by Lyons Road right here. So Cook Road, which is this one with the X right here. Lyons Road right here is right around the corner from it, and this one kind of showed some pictures of how the bottom is all deteriorated from it. You can kind of see that here. There's stuff on the inside of I don't even know what that is on the inside here, but it's probably something getting through, either a crack on it or some type of repair to it. I don't.
Spray foam,
Yeah.
from God knows when.
And then also waterproof. And then you can see right here, there's been 2 sinkholes that have opened on the side of the road right here that the town had just recently filled because they weren't filled, I guess, like when we were first out there.
The one closest, what we just did with Ones and Dust, the farther one, when we were temporary repairing Cook Road, while we were going through the environment, we used, Fuller was doing a basement over here across, so they used a pump truck. That one actually was 2 foot deep and went on the other side of the far lanes.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see that that's a fairly big, at least that first, that's a fairly big size hole right there. It'd be, and once that starts happening, it becomes pretty critical to get this, to start thinking about replacing this.
So again, the process on these, you can see the rust, and that rust is down on the bottom and goes up here. So these high flows taking material, basically sandblasting the galvanization off. When you go down and you look in the bottom of this, there are holes in the tube, in the galvanized pipe, and that's losing material through here. Like where is this material going? It's going down. It's being taken away from the bottom, and it's falling down around the culvert. So that's the process that is happening out there. And we're finding them in all those galvanized pipes.
So the third one that Mike said is a high priority 8 is at Fuller Road, right before Bear Swamp Road. I'm trying to find, where is this map? this one right here. That, as well as Lions Road, are kind of, I think one of them is a 10-foot culvert and one is a 6-foot culvert. They're fairly smaller projects. They're gonna be more in line with what Cook Road was to replace. I don't expect a long period of time for construction. Westcott's kind of a different scale. That just has to be a lot more planning, and that's gonna be a lot more engineering. But the issue with Fuller Road is that, well, I guess for Fuller and Lions Road is that we don't need to shut down anything as far as we'll have to have detours. We won't be able to, it's not a dead-end street basically, so we're not gonna have to do a temporary structure or roadway around that. So that kind of makes those a little bit easy. Still might cause a pain for some people on those, but that's a big one that we don't have to actually build a temporary crossing there, which we had to do for Cook. So I don't know, Mike, do you want me to go into the other ones that we have we've identified, or?
I did.
The threes, I don't think it's necessary to get into the.
No, the rest I'm not worried about at this point. Obviously, I'm sure Brain Hollow will be next, but it's not on this replacement.
Wouldn't be part of the 8s as far as the replacements.
What's that?
That
That would be part of the gas.
Yeah.
So I would assume by, of course, I live right there, so that one's easy to keep track of. The same stream going through my culverts and my driveway that they go through.
Right,
there,
it's
so.
a high traffic area too.
Yeah, in the morning traffic, then it kind of lightens up, and then you get the night traffic.
Right.
It's a lot of farm traffic.
This is actually the Fuller Road one, and what's happening, first picture, I believe that's the beginning of a sinkhole happening right there. Up to the right there, yeah. The other thing that's going on with this one is, it looks like they put a 6-foot tube in there when they installed it, and then at some point they put a 4-foot, or they had a 4-foot in there, and then they built a 6-foot.
Yeah, you're talking Fuller Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of stuff in here that yeah, it's you can also, it's hard to see in the picture, but this one especially, the bottom is very deteriorated.
Yeah, they shoved the 4 into a 6, but they didn't put stone or concrete
Yeah, so it's just
in between, and
Just
Stuff
around,
getting all
just
over
around the
the
entrance,
entrance.
not
yeah. And of course, that joint's under the road.
yeah.
So something like this one could be all precast, you think?
All of these could be all well, Westcott's a little different.
Westcott's. So what we try to do, that's for the longevity of how long the road would be shut down, is that you can do these, what Mark was showing before at, what one was
Cook
that?
Road.
At Cook Road was all precast.
Yeah.
So precast footings, precast arch sections, and those can be installed in a couple of days.
They basically come, I think they did Cook Road, the installation, that came in 7 pieces off of the trucks from the precast company, and I think the actual installation of it went in 2 days. By the time, I mean, it takes all this time to prep it and to get the sub base down and the rock, and, but that, I think the actual culvert installation happened
Fairly quickly, and then it's all.
Same thing with Patton Road. I mean, we started that one, and 3 weeks later, that road was open. So we do think that Lions Road and Fuller Road could be on that same scale. They wouldn't be long-term closures.
You do run into certain situations where you can't. You have to have like cast-in-place footings. One was
That was Telegraph, yeah.
Telegraph Road, and a lot of that was because of all the overhead wire. We couldn't get a crane in there, so that we had cast-in-place footings, and then they could put cast-in-place footings, and then the precast came in, and then they were shoved underneath the wires.
onto it.
So that's why we had to go to a cast-in-place. It took longer. There was a longer period of time that there was a detour. I think the same one way back when we did Fuller Road back in 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same one, we ran into ledge. So we actually had to scribe the footing to the ledge, and then we started to bring in the precast pieces. Probably on, what's the big one, the
Westcott.
On Westcott, we're probably looking at cast-in-place abutments and then a precast plank. So the time will be that precast, that cast-in-place, because you've got to excavate it, you've got to put the forms up, you have to pour the concrete, rebar and concrete, and then you got to wait before you put a load on it. The other thing on Westcott, although it is for 6 houses, we believe, we've got to look at it more, and that's where we're getting the survey back, that we could shut, like half of that down and build it in sections, rather than doing a full temporary bridge or something.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
We think that it's wide enough, that-
Yeah,
and
clear.
if we keep, we'd have to talk to the precast.
Yeah.
Look at where the existing abutments are.
Excellent,
That would be the preferable route,
definitely.
because any kind of temporary bridge is very expensive.
So, and I don't know, was there any other questions on these, or?
No, that was excellent presentation.
And yeah, so we left the board up there, if anyone wants to, can stay in the town, if anyone wants to look at the other ones that are on the, and just kind of realize how many of these things there really are here.
You mentioned 2 days and 3 weeks. I'm a little confused with,
With,
Oh.
when I said 2 days, I meant that was the actual installation of the concrete structure. The whole project took 3 weeks.
so the road could be closed for 3 weeks?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm just talking about the installation of
The
They're bringing
precast.
Yeah.
precast units in, so they've already been poured, they've already cured, the 3 days or whatever is just to place those. Where if we have to, for some reason, have cast in place, where we have the concrete trucks out there and actually pouring in place, that's where the real time
Yeah.
takes. It's not only the excavation and the preparation, but it's the curing of that concrete before we can start putting load on it.
It actually would telegraph, I think it delayed that one
Yeah,
for months.
yeah.
Like, and it was all because we had to switch to cast in place for that.
So,
So yeah.
There's, there's been talk about kind of trying to speed up the Army Corps and DEC at times. Is there any way to jack them up at times, or they go their own pace?
Speed them up as in their review of
Yeah.
things. Well, I don't know if this helps or not, but the main reviewer from the Army Corps, they just changed personnel there. So the main contact we had, it's a different person at the Army Corps. He was pretty quick on the last one that we did. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're kind of at their mercy with it, and same with the DEC. But I do know Cook got through pretty fast with them. So, and then the good thing about identifying these now is, in the town of Peru and really anywhere up here, the best time to do these is at, definitely not during the spring melt or anything like that in April. These streams are going to be just flying, So if we identify these in this early, like we're doing, we're trying to gather all the data so that we can do our engineering for it. We can actually start doing the permitting with the Army Corps and everything over the winter, so that when the nice weather comes and someone's been hired to do this, we're ready to go.
And that also makes us more available for funding, grant funding, being shovel ready.
yes, it does.
There's also things to think about too, like, I know that, but on some of these, when we're not having to build a temporary way around the culvert, there still has to be things like school bus traffic and everything. How do you do that if that's part of a school bus route or anything? So sometimes the time of year can really help with that too.
Excellent.
Yeah, and another factor that the real important factor too, besides the environment of getting it, is actually, once the board approves everything, is getting the structures built. Because, you've got 3 structures, 4, whatever we're gonna do here, and then, we're just one town, never mind all the other towns, counties, and state agencies that are trying to get structures built, so. I think the quicker, like Mark said, if we can get going, and they can't be built until you get the approval from the DEC and the Army Corps, because if they don't approve it, you can't use those structures, so that's why that part can't be done.
Yeah.
Are you working with other towns that have similar challenges?
We're not personally, but Peter knows a bunch in Vermont that,
Yeah. Yes.
Not
There's a
unusual.
lot of towns that have the same issue. And I think we're all doing just about the same thing in the firm, is that we're trying to get to precast units. And the Corps of Engineer requirements are the same in New York, or Vermont, or New Hampshire. So we're trying to go on that 1.25 times the stream bed width, and then go to precast units, so that the construction time is actually less.
And the age of the culverts are all about the same, evidently.
Here in Peru, they are,
Yeah.
yeah. And there was a lot of damage from the hurricanes in the 90s and stuff. So, yeah. But we're seeing the same type of thing, that you're getting this rust, and how does that happen? It's just naturally rusting. It's because we're creating, the way these were put in the 90s and before, they created a situation where we have very high velocities, erosion happening above the culvert and below the culvert. And when you go out and look at Westcott is a great example.
yeah, so Westcott.
It's that when you look downstream, you see, oh, the Salmon River really isn't that wide. Well, right after the culvert, I'd love to see that at high flow.
Yeah, it's like
because
60
that must be
feet
like a
wide.
fire hose out there. And on both sides, it is a big area. And it happened ahead of it too, upstream of it, same type of thing. So, yeah.
A lot of volume trying to get through quickly.
Quickly, you constricted it. Yes, the culverts can handle it. Hydraulically, they can handle it. But you've restricted it so much, created a situation where you're deteriorating your culverts, and upstream and downstream, you're eroding the stream bank. So what we're going back to is making a much wider crossing. And, a lot has changed over my career. The advent of precast, readily available precast unit, that they just show up, and if you can get a crane there, you can put them in a couple of days. That is great.
Definitely.
And now you have a concrete structure that's going to last you 100 years.
Plus design, where you see a lot of the head walls aren't the same, and end walls and stuff, so
Oh, yeah.
they don't realize it's as much erosion on the end wall as it is the head walls.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, $5.
Yeah,
Ah, man, nothing's free, man. You can Venmo me.
Right. Well, that's another issue.
Yes.
Didn't Essex County,
Thank you.
didn't they have temporary bridges that they purchased some? They had a few.
North Elba was able to acquire, use the temporary bridge, the Veteran Lodge Road, and then North Elba.
That was through the Corps of Engineers, right? Yeah. I know they did one up for the Redford too, they put one in there, when that one bridge went out, and actually it's still sitting there, they're still using it.
Yes.
Weight restriction on it.
I'm not sure where that one is now. I know North Elba did acquire it after the lodge.
Ron Harlow probably ended up with it.
Okay, gentlemen, any further discussion on the presentation, or shall we move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is actually the beginning of the steps that are going to be required here to get these projects ready for any kind of permitting application. If not, we'll move on to item 7, it's a resolution.
A resolution accepting the proposal of Daniel M. Spada, environmental consultant for the Lyons and Fuller Roads Culvert Project for wetland delineation services. We need a motion and a second to go on.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Eric's motion, Craig is second. Further discussion on that topic? If not, call the vote.
Is there two agendas? Because the one I got off the internet is completely different.
We had to add it, so, yeah.
It was added, John. at the last-
Okay, I just printed this at 5 o'clock today, just, that's what I
Whereas
was
the board
confused.
has deemed it necessary for the town of Peru to hire Daniel M. Spada, environmental consultant for the Lyons and Fuller Roads culvert projects for wetland delineation services. Whereas the town board has decided that the proposal of Daniel Spada to determine locations that have potential to be classified as state and/or federal wetlands along those portions of the Lyons and Fuller Roads. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Peru accepts the proposal of Daniel Spada, environmental consultant services for the wetland delineation services at the cost not to exceed $3,750. Be it resolved that the resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Duquette?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
And Mr. Randall?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Peter, I know you gotta go back to Vermont, don't feel like you have to sit around here if you gotta go. Mark can handle it.
Nice guy, Mark,
The next item 8 on the agenda is a proposal that deals with the removal of sludge from the wastewater plant as proposed by Casella. And I'll ask that we read the resolution.
Okay. A resolution approving the town's biosolid sludge removal amendment to the agreement with New England Waste Services of ME Inc., DBA Casella Organics, dated September 24th, 2024, and authorizing the supervisor to execute the same. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Whereas the town board has the amendment to the agreement before it between the town of Peru and News of Me, Inc., for the removal of the town sewer plant biosolid sludge. Whereas customer will compensate contractor at the rate of $115 per wet ton of residuals removed and beneficially reused as the grasslands facility. Whereas customer will compensate contractor at the rate of $140 per wet ton of residuals removed from the disposed of at the Franklin County landfill. Whereas demurrage contractor may impose demurrage charges at $150 per hour when loading and departure of the plant exceeds 40 minutes. In the event customer cancels pickup upon contractor's arrival or while en route, a minimum of 4 hours of demurrage charge will be applied. Resolve said proposed agreement is approved and the supervisor be and hereby is authorized to execute said agreement. And be it resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Greg, Mr. Bruno?
Can I have a question before we?
Yes.
Okay.
Court, what's the difference between going to the grassland facility and going to the Franklin? I mean, there's quite a difference in price.
Yeah, the grassland, they actually further dry
Reuse
it,
it.
and then they reuse it, where the landfills just get done.
So why doesn't it all go to the grassland?
It depends on if they can't accept it or if it's contaminated.
Okay.
If it's contaminated with something, sticks, any stuff. If it was frozen, say we had to clean out in the middle of winter, it's frozen, grasslands can't take it, we have to landfill it.
Okay, thank you.
Is this pretty much standard of what the price is at that?
No, this is an increase. I think we're paying 104 a ton now. This is an increase.
Thank
contracts for the next 3 years with a, what I consider a consumer price index increase percentage, isn't that how it was worded? For every year.
Makes sense.
How often do they have to remove it?
We do twice a year, approximately around 90 tons each time. We usually clean out in the spring and then right before winter, so we have our,
It's been the same group that's been doing it.
Yeah.
Correct.
This agreement's been reviewed by Matt Fabro, and the recommendation from his perspective is that it's acceptable for signature with the town.
that price does include trucking too. So that's not just the tipping fees at the landfill or whatever, it actually includes the truck.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Usually that comes.
$67 a ton when I took over in 2015.
Should have locked into that price. Thank you, Mr.
Any
Randall.
further questions regarding before we call a vote? If not, we'll proceed with the vote.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Ducat,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Randall, sorry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Judy.
Next item we have is a resolution regarding the request to transfer funding from the storm drain reserve monies to a line item involving further culvert expense. Again, there's a resolution to be read.
A resolution authorizing the transfer of monies from the Storm Drain Reserve Fund to the Highway H33 Culvert Projects Fund to cover the interim contractual needs. Motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Whereas, in order to meet the financial needs for the management of the highway accounts, funds need to be transferred from the Storm Drain Reserves Fund for the payment of the culvert project's billing. Resolved that the town board has authorized the transfer in the total amount of $25,496.05 to cover the current costs for the project contract billing from highway storm drain reserves. Resolved that the resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Ducat?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent.
Item 10 is an indication for a need to, as I understand it, to cover the cost of certain clothing items on an interim basis till the end of the year. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah.
And the rate, I believe that I understood was $200 per individual, and there could be as many as 6, 7 individuals that this would apply to in the highway department. And Mike, maybe you can explain a little bit of what's taking place here.
On the other ones,
Yes.
those, the ones that scored low will,
No, we're talking about uniforms.
Uniforms.
okay, the uniforms, we've had a lot of trouble. You've heard me talk for quite a few years. Been through, I don't know how many different drivers, management, guys would get their uniforms. New employee gets their new uniforms. One pair of pants fits, the other pair is that much too big, or size of somebody that weighs 100 pounds, or the pants legs are 1.5 feet too short or 2 foot long. I met several times with the management. try to straighten it out. Not once have they offered to measure the employees themselves, but it'd be the same brand of pants. One pair would fit, the other pair was either way too small, so this has been going on for several years since I've been here. So, I think one of my senior employees haven't had pants in over a year, and we're paying, can't get them, so when Eric and Mel met with them, we asked about a clothes and allowance, so that's, the way they wanna go. I think we're talking $1,000, for 2025, that would include their boots, that would take care of that. In the meantime, when we had our budget set the other night, at least 3 of them turned their clothes in now because it's not getting service. We're trying to get a couple $100 for them to finish out this year. Like I said, that one guy hasn't had anything. Okay, so.
And the other thing is we're actually saving the town money going this way.
Yeah, that line item was 10 2 years ago. I cut it to 9 this year, and then next year it would go down to 7,500.
And they'll have clothes.
Yeah.
And they know that fits.
Yeah.
So.
So to summarize, what we're doing is the contract with the company is running out. We need to fill the gap until budget season ends.
Yeah.
And that contract, I had brought over here, for, Matt to look at. It got signed and Matt never got to look at it, but it's the same one, generic one they've been using for 11 or 15 years, the same one. But you can read enough in the back if you've had problems, that you can find written, to get it out, because if not, they're gonna try to keep us in that until 2027, so.
Perfect.
Good.
I'll make a motion that we give the reimbursement of $200 for the remainder of the year for each employee.
I'll second it.
Further discussion on the topic? If not, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, item 11, under other business. You have in your packets this evening information from our bonding company with respect to various options, and this is not for action this evening, this is for information. Various options for funding the culvert projects that you heard a presentation regarding a few minutes ago, including 2 or 3 possibilities in terms of the timing of it. Obviously, at this point, these projects are not shovel-ready, they're not ready to go, but they most likely would become shovel-ready in 2025. Timing of the funding, which is an integral part of putting it out to bid, could be handled in a couple of different ways depending on the timing when these projects have to start. They may not all start at exactly the same time. So the town could be looking at the use of short-term borrowings called bands in the event that they're scattered out over 2025-26, with the idea that then a permanent, long-term bond debt would be put in place once they're all accumulated. That's probably the most likely scenario, although it's difficult at this time to know that. As you heard earlier, we are working as quickly as possible to get these all approved projects so that we can go out for bid and go out for funding. So in addition to that, I think you have this page in your packet which basically describes the estimated cost of each one of the 4 roads that were discussed this evening in total. Telegraph, which is already underway, West Scott Road, Taylor Road, and Lyons Road, which are to be the next most critical projects to be done. In the aggregate total, we're looking at just under $4.9 million as estimated by our engineers. Obviously, the concern I think that we should have is that we'll be joining surrounding counties that are looking at the same issues. We're looking at the state of Vermont, which is looking at the same issues as we are, and God only knows what the bids will look like when they finally occur. But we're looking to start as soon as 2025 with the correction of some of these, which in some cases, I think it certainly appears, looking at the four you looked at tonight, they, depending on weather conditions and storms, they can become more critical. Pam?
Question? Oh, sorry, Jen.
One other concern is how we will be paying the interim bills of the engineering, the wetland delineations, the surveying, all of that, prior to getting the ban or the bond. So that's why we should act on it as soon as possible, because Mike is running out of money quickly.
We're good lenders. I got a question though. The last email I got, it went from 20 to 30 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this, it says 20 on here.
That one was the original.
Okay.
And then I had questioned because when I saw 20, I immediately thought of 2022. And I saw that that was a 30 years, so I asked them to rethink about it, and they said as long as we get a letter like Mark sent for the prior telegraph, that it had a longer lifespan than 20 years, then we could go 30-year bond.
Pretty sure I heard Peter say something about 100 years late.
Yeah, but
Probably wrote in the letter.
I don't know, man. I heard 100 years. Anybody hear that?
I heard Gary too.
I wrote it down.
Thank you, sir.
but the problem is they won't let us bond for more than 30.
Well, certainly we can expect 30.
We definitely can certainly expect 30 with the 100-year guarantee.
I don't think he guarantees anything.
Oh, he hasn't? You heard it.
Well, I didn't take it that way.
So there will be upcoming bills as we're preparing these projects for
Yeah.
permitting
Yeah.
that will need to be addressed in an appropriate way. And depending on when they occur, whether they occur this year or next year, may impact that. But certainly this year, you would see continuing resolutions for authorization to find a source of funds to pay them.
Aid the highway.
Thank you, Pam, for checking that.
You ever think about a GoFundMe page?
Might not be a bad idea.
I guess so.
I think as I was sitting thinking about these in the last few days and listening to the conversations, we're facing some significant capital costs, whether it's in our highway department, our wastewater plant, or our water department. They're all looking at projects that are either, in the case of the highway department, a factor of weather that in time that's worn out the facilities that are there, or in the case of wastewater and water, mandates from the state for upgrades that are all certainly desirable in the long term, but they come with significant costs associated with them. So I think a lot of our time as a board is going to be spent considering those issues and determining what an appropriate response to each one of them is going to be. They're all necessary, at least in the eyes of the state.
You jumped right into the frying pan, Mr. Randall.
Well, I can share the fact that based on my prior experience, it was no different there.
Perfect.
When the requirement comes, and typically the state will assist to some degree with those larger projects. The trick is trying to keep this in a situation that our residents and users of the water and sewer systems can afford to pay.
It's nice having your experience that way, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any further discussion on that topic for this evening, or shall we move on to item 12, which is public comments this evening on the items that have been addressed on the agenda so far? Mr. Roberts?
Before we do that, sorry, do we need to ask any of the other department heads if they have other business?
We didn't have that on the agenda, but we certainly can. We start over here with Bob.
So I think I emailed the board concerning the contact that I received from Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board. And we have probably about 10 people from both the planning board and the zoning board, and a few from the town board that wish to participate in the zoning code update as well as the comprehensive plan. I'm just coordinating with the planner, with the regional board as to when their schedule would allow her to, I'm sure it'd probably be some evening meeting, so just trying to coordinate with her. I haven't heard back on that.
Is this a committee that will require appointment, or will still be a board action?
I don't know if it would be well,
I think it was voluntary last time.
yeah, they were just a volunteer board.
Made recommendations to the board after the fact that we approved.
And they certainly would be open to the public, and they would be advertised as such, so.
Hopefully we can find some help with the funding for that project.
Yeah, I
That
spoke to
organization.
the planner, and she said that there is funding out there, and they would help secure.
Excellent.
As I understand it, the current comprehensive plan and zoning code date back into the 90s.
No, 13 is the zoning code, and the comprehensive plan was actually prior to that. But the way, they like you to do the comprehensive plan prior to your zoning code.
Any questions from the board on that?
Nope.
We need to update it, there's no doubt about it.
Yep.
It's a priority.
You good? Courtney?
I'm good.
Mike?
No, I'm pretty good. Just anybody needs anything, I leave tomorrow morning for fall conference down at Cottville, the schooling, so get ahold of Tyler, he'll be running the show. So the only other thing I'll say is we're doing the last update that DEC wanted on our bulk tank. We put the primer on the storage tanks today, and put the finished coat paint that they wanted. That's a new state law that has to be painted. So that'll be done before the 25th, and that's the last. So
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah? No? Anyone else that I missed? I guess not. If that's the case, we'll move on then to public comments. John?
The Fuller Road project, is that the one that's currently in the detour? That's listed here on the agenda?
Mike?
what's that?
No.
Mark?
For the culvert project?
Yes.
No, that is not within the detour for Telegraph right now. It's on the other side, it's north of Bear Swamp Road. So it's not part of the detour.
Okay, I thought it was the other one. Thank you.
Thank you.
More out towards Remelard's end, right?
Who's this uniform company that hasn't been providing very good service?
You first.
You first?
First.
Unit first.
Uniform.
First. And they've been putting up with that for quite a while, Josh, and it's like,
And they had good service when it was all run out of diesel. And they burst and everything, the clothes now are all shipped down the line. I don't think Courtney's had much problem, it seems to be in our, so I'm only speaking for highway.
Anyone else?
Just a quick question. Was there a statement at the beginning of the meeting regarding the change in the agenda that was put forth to the public? Or was it just as we were going through it? Maybe I didn't hear it.
No, there was no statement, but we didn't have time to put it out to the, it was done at the last minute.
I didn't know if most rules were to put it forth to those that are sitting here regarding changing agendas. Just a curious question. That's it.
It does happen occasionally, and it has happened in my years of experience more often than not, if there's something that comes in that needs to be addressed.
I just thought it was normally announced like at the beginning of the meeting before we were halfway through the agenda. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, that's what it was.
If not, we'll move on to item 13, which is a resolution for authorizing the payment of bills that have come in to the town to be paid and authorized this evening. Julie?
Resolution authorizing the post-audit payment of certain claims, bills, and invoices of the town. Motion?
Second.
Whereas the town board has reviewed and audited the following claims, bills, invoices for services rendered and goods provided to the town in September 2024. From the town of Peru vouchers for September 2024, 2024-01264 through and including 2024-01342, abstract dated 9/19/24 for the dollar amount totaling $294,241.01. Of that, $15,585.13 was wired, credit cards, and prepaids, and $655,088 is remaining to be paid for September 2024. Whereas the town board finds said claims, bills, and invoices to be acceptable in form and reasonable in amount. Now therefore be it resolved that payment of the aforementioned claims, bills, and invoices is approved, and the supervisor be and hereby is authorized to make such payment, and be it further resolved that the resolution shall take effect immediately. Roll call. Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Duquette?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Judy.
I'm not aware of any issue that needs or requires an executive session. So
Can I ask for a point of order why that's on the agenda if it's not needed? There's a very clear law on open public meetings, and there's very select reasons why you can go into executive session. I thought maybe it was over the old supervisor, because it was off once, and it's been on the last 2 meetings. There is a way for this body to go into executive session by these board members voting yes, that you don't have to have it on the agenda if it's not required. It's a bad look to the public if it's just sitting there, not needed. This agenda is obviously printed ahead of time, and it was obviously changed, which we figured out. So something not needed doesn't look good on an agenda, in my opinion.
It's there in case we need it.
I'm talking to the board now.
Excuse
I'm gonna ask
me.
for a point of order as well.
with all due respect, let's keep it respectful here.
I'm talking to the board. This is a town board meeting.
And the bottom
Yeah,
line
well, it's
is-
not public comment session, you've already missed your turn in that, and all agendas revised or underneath the clock for the public to get at any time before the meeting
Okay, but I'm
starts.
asking for a point of order on why there's something on the agenda that's not needed.
Go ahead. Craig can answer that.
At this point in time, it's left on there. It's something that has been a practice of the board. I have not been aware of the fact that it was a concern. It doesn't have to be there every meeting. And you're correct that there are only certain points that we're allowed to take into executive session. And when in fact there is one, we would indicate that the purpose of using executive session. If it really is a problem for the board, then we can elect to do something different.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
With no need for an executive session, I would move to request a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.